Welcome to Health Club with Julia. I'm your host, health coach, and registered dietitian, Julia Campagna. I'm on a mission to bridge the gap between looking your best and living your life to the fullest. After years of over dieting, struggling with disordered eating, and destroying my social life, I finally found how to reach my dream physique without sacrificing the things I love. Now I'm sharing all my strategies and education with you. We'll be talking all things health, including hormones, metabolism, and lifestyle to help you cut out the confusion and start living. So get cozy and join the club. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Health Club with Julia podcast. As always, I am so happy you are here. We are talking about nutrition today, and it's no surprise and it's not shocking whenever somebody comes to me and I ask them, what are you struggling with the most? And odds are, like 9 out of 10 times, they will say, my nutrition. I don't know what to eat, I don't know how much to eat, I don't know, I think I'm doing everything right, and I just don't see any change. Whatever the case is, I feel like nutrition is always a hard part for a lot of people. And again, it's not surprising because nutrition is very complex. To the basics of it, yes, it's fairly simple, but going deeper than that, it can get a little bit complicated. And it really does depend on what your goal is and what you're struggling with, or where your health status is at and all of that. So it can be fairly difficult depending. So I always am not surprised, not shocked by that. But today I want to go into specifics around nutrition and not just this is what you should eat for your goals and things like that. I want to kind of talk directly related to your gut and hormone health and how food and nutrition plays a role in that, and what we can be eating to get the most benefit out of our gut and hormone health, and really kind of tailor our nutrition towards that. So before I even go into all of that, what you eat is just as important as how you eat. So when we think about that, when we think about nutrition, right, a lot of people think about what we're eating, what kinds of foods we're eating, cutting out sugar, cutting out, for some people, carbs, lowering your processed foods, really trying to make sure you're eating a whole food based diet. So yes, that is all really important, but how you eat is just as important to what you're eating. And what I mean by that is eating and standing at the counter. If you're eating and you're just running around, or you're standing up at the counter, your body's not in a digestive state of mind. So that can impact your gut health. Not as much your hormones, it's more of a digestive issue with that one. But again, if you do that all the time and you have a lot of digestive issues, that can eventually lead to hormone issues. So things like eating standing at the counter, rushing to work and you're eating either in the car, or if you're eating running out the door, again, you're in a rush state, you're not in a digestive state of mind. Eating while you're working, you're really distracted, whether that's working. Even I see this with scrolling on social media, watching TV, any sort of distractions around eating. Again, not in a digestive state, a little bit more of a stress environment. So stress environments in general affect how your body is able to digest and absorb nutrients. So I said a lot of these things, are more geared towards the gut health piece of this instead of the hormone health. But in terms of absorbing nutrients, again, your body is not able to digest these as well because it's not in that state to digest. It's not in digestion mode. And so you may be lacking some absorption of your nutrients, which does impact your hormones. So we want to really get in this really calm state when we are eating. And this can go in a couple of different ways. It can look a lot different for different people, but one of the things that I like to do with my clients when I find that their eating etiquette, I call it, or how they are experiencing their meal times is a little bit off and a little bit stressed and rushed, what I say to them is take a few deep breaths before you eat. Sit down with your plate and then sit there and take a few really deep breaths. And just sit there and relax. Before you put the fork to your mouth or the spoon to your mouth, sit and relax. That's going to help you automatically get in this rested, not stressed, more digestion focused state of mind before you eat. So that's what I say first and foremost. If you feel like you're usually stressed and overwhelmed and like you're eating while working or whatever the case is, just take a minute to take a few breaths, like 3 to 5 breaths before you actually eat your food. And then you can even go beyond that. So you can create an experience. What I mean by that is set the table, light some candles, sit down, whether it's by yourself or significant other, family, whatever, create an experience around your food. Make it something that is welcoming, that you're really excited for. That is something that's really, really important when it comes to families and children, because it's really easy when you're either by yourself or you just have your significant other with you or a friend or what have you, and it's just you and one other person. It's like, okay, maybe we watch our TV show while we eat. I am guilty of this sometimes, for sure. A lot of the times, actually, me and my husband will sit and we'll watch our Netflix show. We'll catch up on a couple episodes while we're eating. And that's fine and dandy, but when it comes to family, when it comes to having children, one of the really big key takeaways that I've learned, and also just like from experience and know from other people, is creating this environment. You want it to be something that, again, is really enjoyable, brings happiness to you. It's a time where you can talk about your day, talk about what questions you have, what's on your mind. Again, especially with children, let them talk to you about their day. Let them talk to you about different aspects. It brings this sense of security. It brings this sense of wholeness and togetherness to a family that I think is really, really important. And also, that in and of itself, in turn, will help them have a better relationship with their food because they're there creating this experience around their meal. So that's kind of on the family side, but regardless, even if you don't have a family yet, if it's just you or if it's, again, your significant other, family, whatever, have you create the experience, set the table, sit down, talk to each other, just communicate, have more open conversations around dinner, create an environment that's really fun and inviting for you. That can really help get you, again, in better digestion mode, absorption mode. Eat undistracted. So again, I talked about how, me and my husband will sit and watch a TV show. Yes, we do this all the time. Well, not all the time, but most of the time we do this, and it's something that I do want to change. I know it's not always going to change, and that's okay. Like, I can eat and watch the TV. That's fine. That is our only time that we watch the TV. Then when we turn off the TV and we go into bed, which mind you is like 8:30, 9 o'clock absolute max, is when we get into bed. So by like 8:30, the TV's off. We are like in bed, getting ready to go to sleep. So we watch like 1 or 2 episodes a night of our favorite TV show, and then we go to bed. Before that, while we're making dinner or what have you, we'll talk, we'll chat, we'll, again, not be like distracted, but if you can eat undistracted as much as possible, especially with work, because work usually brings stressors, right? It's usually an overwhelmed sense where you have to get things done, and so you're eating more rushed. I think that is even bigger than eating distracted, because you can eat and watch TV, but I'm not stressed, like I'm just, sitting there watching my favorite show or what have you. But eat undistracted, eat in a relaxed state, eat outside if you can. That's a really great way to get relaxed before you eat your meal. It's just like getting out in nature in general, whether you're eating or not, is really great for your nervous system. So especially bringing food outside, that again can help you eat undistracted. So you're there with yourself or somebody else, and you're like able to chat and talk and just like be with each other, but also you're getting fresh air, you're getting, if it's sunny out, sunlight, you're getting just like to see different things. So that's a really nice one as well. So basically all of this in a nutshell that I just rambled on about is the fact that what or how you eat is just as important as what you eat. So don't lose sight of that. A lot of people only think about the what, not the how. So make sure you're adding that into your routine with food as well. Now, let's get into like the actual food situations here. There's a couple things that I want you to think about when it comes to food and how that can help your gut health and hormones. So big takeaways here, ones that a lot of people think about, is, are you eating enough? That's a question that a lot of people already ask themselves, but if you're not, I want you to ask yourself, are you eating enough? We need to eat enough to have good digestion, to have properly functioning hormones, to have all of these systems in our body actually working properly. We need to be eating enough. And I'll talk a little bit about body fat and how that kind of plays a role in food and hormones in a little bit, but it's very important that you're eating enough. So ask yourself that question. Are you eating enough? Do you feel like you're under eating? Are you having any symptoms of under eating? Fatigue, lack of energy, lack of motivation, strong cravings, all of these can be signs, so make sure you ask yourself that question. Second question, are you getting quality sleep? Again, nutrition can play a role in how you are sleeping. Both meal timing and also the quality of your food can impact how you're sleeping. And then, as we know, sleep can impact your digestion and your hormones as well. So that needs to be a question that you're asking yourself. And if it's off, it could be something else. It could not be just nutrition related, but it can be related to nutrition. Third question, are you having a bowel movement every day? Again, this is a major sign for gut health. So obviously, if you are constipated, if you're not going to the bathroom, then that's an issue. Something's going on digestion-wise that's not really right. That's a clear sign of poor digestion. But it also can impact your hormones. Again, if we are not excreting toxins, one of the major ways that we excrete our toxins in our body and get that crap out of us is through bowel movements, going to the bathroom regularly. This can also affect your estrogen. This is one of the things that we see a lot with excess estrogen. Excess estrogen that is not moved through the body and excreted can recirculate, and then that recirculation can cause an increase in your estrogen, causing estrogen dominance. So it does play a role in your hormones as well. So are you having a bowel movement every day? If not, there's something wrong. Now, if you miss a bowel movement every now and then, okay, that's probably not the worst thing. There's probably just some outside circumstance that's happening. But if it's like every other day for weeks and months and years, or if you go to the bathroom 3 to 4 times out of the week, every single week, okay, then that's an issue. So be a little bit wary with that. Also, the type of bowel movement that you're having, like I said, if you're constipated, that's not great. But constipation can also, it doesn't just mean that you're not going to the bathroom, it can also look like different things, like, again, TMI, so skip over this part if you don't want to listen about bowel movements. But, like, if you are having pebbles or it's hard to pass, that could be signs of constipation. And then on the other end of that, if you're having really loose stools, very frequent amounts of stools, then that's also not great. So you can look up, there's something called a Bristol stool chart that I use with all my clients as well with bowel movements, but if you wanted to look that up, just wonder what yours are looking like. We want to be somewhere in the middle between like 4 to 6, something that's pretty solid, not too loose, not hard to pass, not pebbly, not, again, like, you know what that looks like. I'm gonna say that, but if you want further clarification, you can look that up. But the last question that you should be asking yourself is also, are you working on stress with techniques when you need to? So this I already kind of talked about with how you're eating, but stress again plays a significant role in digestion and absorption of nutrients, and also plays a role in your hormones. So if you are chronically stressed, odds are your digestion is going to be a lot worse. You might feel bloating, gas, things like that. Again, it can impair your hormones, it can cause ovulation problems, it can cause lower hormones, it can cause a whole slew of things. So stress is very important. You should be, if you are somebody that tends to be overwhelmed and stressed a lot, you should definitely work on stress techniques, going on walks, breathing, lighting candles, reading, journaling. All of these kinds of things are really great for stress. You should be using something daily if you need to. I mean, again, stress is necessary. We have a stress response for a reason. But if you're chronically stressed, and again, in today's world, stress is so high, not like it used to be, and that's a problem. So make sure that you're working on that as well. So those are some just like starting things to get the gears going and thinking about how your body and nutrition and all the other things kind of play a role in digestion and your hormones. Now, if any of these things are off, then we need to start with those things, and then we can get more specific. So I would start there and then go into the specifics. Now, also on top of all these questions that I want you to ask, we also need to kind of unlearn the habits that we were taught growing up. Now, again, we as females, we are it's hard, right? It's hard to be a female sometimes in terms of like weight and nutrition and not eating enough to look a certain way and all these kinds of things, especially growing up where you had shows like America's Next Top Model and that like Dallas Cowboy cheerleader show, even like things like Full House, they would say stuff. There commercials, there was weight loss and looking a certain way was everywhere when we were growing up, in magazines, on the TV, no matter what, even just like talking through it with different people, it was everywhere. So we really, I feel like as females together, have a problem when it comes to body image and stuff like that, and it's unfortunate, but we kind of need to switch our mindset around how we're feeling around this and be okay with a certain level of body fat. Because being at a certain weight, having a certain amount of body fat is absolutely crucial and necessary to support your menstrual cycle. So, give my own experience with this. For example, I did have an eating disorder. If you are new here, hi, hello, I did have an eating disorder. If you've been following me, you probably know that already, but I did have an eating disorder in college, and I got down to a severely low body fat percentage. Now, it was low enough that it did cause me to lose my period. So I think I was like 15-16% body fat. What is necessary to support your menstrual cycle, I believe, is 21% body fat, which is still fairly lean, but that's what you need to support a healthy cycle. And I was way below that, obviously. So when I lost all this weight and I was at a very low body fat percentage, I did lose my cycle. I did not have a period. Obviously, that caused problems with my hormones. That was one of the major symptoms. And I was just not at a good place with digestion or hormones. It also wrecked my digestion. When I tell you the amount of problems I had, I ended up having candida. I had so much gas, so much bloating. I was in pain after certain foods. Like, it was not great, and that's because our bacteria in our microbiome, they do feed off of different foods. And if you're not eating foods, if you're not giving it that to thrive, then that's going to cause an imbalance of that bacteria. And if we have overgrowth of bad bacteria, that can cause things like leaky gut, intestinal permeability, where that leads to the bloating, the gas, the pain, all of that kind of stuff. So it is important to eat enough also for your gut health. Not only your hormones, but also your digestion as well. If you don't want to be bloated, make sure you're not skipping meals. But anyway, so I had a really low body fat percentage, and it fucked everything up for me. So I've had experience with that, and again, you have to be okay with having enough body fat on your body to sustain proper digestion and hormone support and a healthy menstrual cycle. You absolutely need to. It is crucial. Body fat is also hormonally active, so this is another reason why it's so important to be at a certain level of body fat. Body fat helps us manage our blood sugar and our appetite. It produces estrogen. I'm sure you did not know that. It produces estrogen. So this is why we need body fat to sustain menstrual function. Because it produces hormones for us, which are critical in the whole process of the menstrual cycle. If something is off, the rest of it gets thrown off as well. So it does produce estrogen. It can, again, like going off of that, it produces estrogen. So if you don't have enough body fat, odds are you might be at risk for low estrogen. And low estrogen can cause things like irregular ovulation, long cycles, mood issues, brain fog, and a lot of other things as well. So if you're at risk for low estrogen, obviously that's going to throw everything off, but you also will probably have some of these symptoms come up. And I mean, on the flip side of that, right? So I'm saying we need to have enough body fat. On the flip side of that, too much body fat isn't great either. That can cause things like heavy and long periods. That can cause more PMS. That can cause anovulatory cycles. Not to mention that can cause things like prediabetes, diabetes, hypertension, all of the other like issues with being overweight and having a lot of body fat. So that's not great either. But again, I just want to clarify, like, it is important to have enough body fat. We also have to be mindful of having too much and kind of where we're at with that as well. So that is something that I think needs to be discussed before we go into more specifics again, just because that is important. That is part of this whole thing. Now, enough of my rambling on about other topics related to this. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So let's start with the absolute basics. Let's start with a plate. Let's build your plate, right? So I'm not going to go into specific foods or nutrients right now. I just want you to have the basic idea of what your plate should even look like. So if you think about a plate, right, your circular plate, when you look at your food that you're having, when you're making your meal, I want you to think half of it should be complex carbs and fiber. So a mixture of veggies and starchy veggies, which I'll get into a little bit here in a little bit, but half of your plate should be veggies, starchy veggies, etc. Leafy greens, high fiber veggies, all those good stuff. then a quarter of your plate should be protein, and a quarter of that should be fat. Also adding in whole grains in there, it could be a quarter of your plate is whole grains, and then you have about 2 thumb-sized servings of fat. So that's what you should be really looking at. Most of your plate should be starches and or starchy vegetables, veggies, then a quarter protein and a quarter other whole grains and or fats as well. So when you look at your plate, that's what you should be looking at. Do I have enough of these things on my plate? A lot of people will totally skip out on vegetables or have a quarter of their plate be vegetables. No, we need more of that. So starting with that first, hopefully you can kind of get a clear idea on what that looks like. Now let's go more into specifics. So carbs, sources of carbs that we need to be having. First and foremost, leafy green vegetables. I cannot say this enough. Leafy greens are one of the things that you should have several times a week, whether that's spinach, arugula, kale, what have you. Leafy greens are super, super important. And I'm talking about the nutrient-dense leafy greens, not so much the romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce. Those I always I feel like they're the same thing. I don't know. Anyway, romaine lettuce, iceberg lettuce, that's 99% water. There's not a lot of nutrients in that. It's mostly water with a little bit of nutrients. On the other hand, if you have something like spinach or kale or arugula, you're getting a lot more nutrients. B vitamins, D, E, vitamin C, you're getting it all. Iron, so you're getting a lot more bang for your buck with those. So leafy, dark leafy greens, not so much the romaine or iceberg lettuce, but add those into your diet more often. Make sure that you are having that quite often. It doesn't need to be every single day. I'm not asking you to go have a salad every single day, but add that to certain meals. Add that as a salad. Add that to a smoothie. Spinach, I always add spinach to a smoothie because you don't taste it and it bulks up the nutrient content. So get that in however you can more often. Also high fiber vegetables, which I'll talk about, cruciferous vegetables and stuff like that in a minute. But when it comes to amount of veggies, like I said, you want to have these more often than not. Ideally, we want to have a few servings a day. I know that's not realistic for everyone, but that's the goal that we want to have. But if you're someone who doesn't really love vegetables or specifically cooked greens. Let's talk about cooked greens here for a second. So if you're someone that doesn't really get that in, start with 1 cup of cooked greens per day. That is roughly 2 to 3 cups raw. And I'm saying cooked just because the fiber, and again, I'm not talking about leafy greens, I'm talking about green vegetables in general. So broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, leafy greens, all of that, green vegetables. Get your green vegetables in. Have 1 cup a day to start. Again, that's about 2 to 3 cups raw, depending on the vegetable that you're having, but cook those because fiber can be more difficult to digest, especially if you're someone who already has digestion problems. This can be a little bit harder to digest. So make sure you're cooking those really well to break down some of that fiber before you actually eat it. But again, 1 cup to start, and then increase that over time as you start to integrate that more into your life. But other vegetables, I want to talk about cruciferous vegetables. These are so great. They're very high in fiber, which is awesome. They also contain a compound. For short, it's called I3C. And this enhances the body's ability to neutralize carcinogens, which are cancer-causing toxins, and provide a better pathway for breaking down estrogen in the body. So basically, in a nutshell, cruciferous vegetables can help to protect against cancer. There are different pathways to break down estrogen in the body. There's one specifically that if our body favors that, we are at higher risk of DNA damage and cancer down the line. So add in your cruciferous vegetables. It helps to protect against cancer. This is super important, and obviously who doesn't want to do that? So add more of this in. To get more specific into this, just for those who are interested, how does this happen? This happens by inducing liver detox enzymes. These enzymes help to neutralize the potentially harmful estrogen metabolites. Again, to go into simple terms, metabolites, how we break down the estrogen, and then also xenoestrogens, which are the environmental chemicals that mimic estrogen in your body. So that can come from a whole lot of different things: cleaning products, makeup products, lotions, candles, all that kind of stuff. There are or can be xenoestrogens. So the cruciferous vegetables and the compound in them help to induce these liver enzymes that help to neutralize these things. The I3C compound also helps to break down the metabolites, like I said, so going a little bit more into that. DIM and sulforaphane glucosinolate. I can never say that. Or for short, SGS. So these two things are different things that break down. So DIM supports phase 1 liver detox. Yes, there are different phases in liver detox. I'm not going to get into that. That could be a whole nother podcast episode. But DIM supports your phase 1 liver detox, so breaking down and neutralizing the toxins and hormones. And then the SGS supports phase 2, which further breaks down and eliminates the toxins. So we need both of those phases, and again, this is important with that I3C, which is found in the cruciferous vegetables. So all in all, again, I just wanted to kind of explain that a little bit for anybody who's curious, but in a nutshell, eat your cruciferous vegetables. They protect against cancer and they help to break down estrogen and whatnot. So very great one. Also, beans are really great in terms of carbs. Some people eat beans, especially vegetarians, vegans, eat beans for protein. However, keep in mind that beans are a lot more carb heavy than protein heavy. So it is more leaning towards a carb source. But beans are great. Again, high in fiber, great for you. Lots of nutrients in those. Starches we can add in, so your potatoes, squash, peas, parsnips, all of these. These are all starchy vegetables, so adding your starches, again, great for fiber, nutrients. And then you can also add in some grains as well. Now, be wary a little bit with grains, but grains, whole grains especially, are great. They do have fiber in them, so rice, oats, things like that, quinoa, these ones are all great sources as well. So carbs in a nutshell, eat your dang leafy greens and greens in general, add in cruciferous vegetables, beans are great, starches are great, whole grains. Now, let's go into our fats. Fats are absolutely necessary. Again, I don't know where this came from, and I think it's kind of going away now, but at some point in time, there was this whole idea that fats make you fat. I don't know where that came from or who started that, when it started, but that is not true. Fats are critical to our hormone production. They are absolutely necessary. So we want to add in healthy fats, not only for hormone production, but also to increase the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K, which all have their own reasonings and, what's the word I'm thinking of? They all have their own, reason that we need them. They are key players in hormone regulation and fertility. So again, keys for anyone who is looking to conceive or anything like that, just improve their fertility. So key players in hormone regulation and fertility are these fat-soluble vitamins. But just like the name states, fat-soluble, you need healthy fats to increase the absorption of these nutrients. So we need to add that into our meals. The easiest way to do this is just get some fat sources in every single meal, whether that is just simply cooking in oil or butter, or that's adding in fats to your diet, like avocado, nuts and seeds. There's a lot of different fat sources, but whether you add it in as part of the meal or you're just cooking in it, make sure that you are getting healthy fats in your diet. Now, trans fats are the ones that we want to stay away from. This does increase inflammation and disrupts our hormones, so be wary with your trans fats. We don't want a lot of those, so just make sure that you're paying attention to that. Now, some sources, just to list these out here as well. I've already kind of explained some, but avocado is a great source. Olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil, those are all great. Lard, butter, tallow, these are all good sources. Fatty fish is great, so things like salmon. Nuts and seeds are also really, really important for more than just the healthy fats, again, the nutrients in them, but healthy fat source. Eggs. So these are just a few of the healthy fat sources that you should add into your diet if you are not eating these regularly already. Now, just want to take a second before I go into protein. I want to talk about omega-3s. I feel like in general, we don't get a lot of omega-3s in our diet as a society, but omega-3s are crucial. Again, these are absolutely necessary. On the other hand, we also have what's called omega-6s. So our omega-3 and omega-6 ratio, so omega-6 to omega-3 ratio should be a 1-to-1 ratio between the two. And that's how it used to be, but nowadays, if we're looking about society now, and with all the processed foods that we have, the fast foods that we have, pastries and things like that are so available to us nowadays. And it's kind of crazy, but that ratio looks more like a 10-to-1 ratio or 20-to-1 ratio, up to 20-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. That is crazy. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Health Club with Julia podcast. If you loved the episode, share the podcast and tag me, and subscribe so you don't miss any further episodes. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. Thanks for being a part of the club. See you next time.